Years ago from what we see now. It's not. Actually, it's the same place, only demographically people who live here are different people. That is, of course, the change went over us, but 5,000 years ago it looked more or less the same. The only difference was that the Persian Gulf went deeper into the land. What happened with time, that it was all covered by fertile land that comes from the hills, from the mountains of Turkey, what we see there, marked with white, the glaciers of the high mountains of Turkey that melt in the spring, and the waters create two major rivers, the Euphrates and the Tigris, that we see them here. And the first civilization started here. We can say that history started in the region of Mesopotamia. What is Mesopotamia? Meso is between. Potam is a river, and this is a Greek word for this region between the rivers. Mesopotamia. It's like hippopotam. Hippo is a horse in Greek. Potam is a river. Hippopotam is a horse of the river. So the Greeks call this region Mesopotamia, the region between the rivers. People who lived there 5,000 years ago didn't know that they lived in Mesopotamia. They called themselves Sumerians. And they lived here in the south. This region now, this is Iraq. So we're talking actually about the south of Iraq, where history started. And how did it start? It started with people starting to write. They started to write in this area. And why here? Because you can see here the colors of the blue, green, brown, and white. The white brings us water, blue, the water of the rivers, and green, the valley where the fertile land from the mountains comes. So you can develop agriculture here that is not connected to weather. You can grow wheat here the whole year round. So what happens is that people who settled here started to grow more than they could consume. And the moment you have more than you can consume, you can develop trade. The moment you develop trade, you have to market produce, and then you come to this idea, and this was the big startup of the Sumerians, who were the startup kings of the ancient Middle East. And that was that you can take a tablet, make signs on it, and transform information. And how is it different from the modern item? It's just the technology maybe is different, but the idea, the first idea of transform information this way was Sumerian. And this is where writing started. And the moment they started to write, they wrote everything. They wrote their chronicles, their history. Actually, everything, a lot of what we know about the ancient times come from the Sumerian libraries that were left. They did not belong to any of the three families of men that we mentioned before. Nobody knows who they were. For sure, they were not Semites. And they did not belong to any known family of men until now. Nobody knows who they were. But they were conquered later on by Semitic tribes, by, you want to ask? No? Question? No. The Babylonians, Assyrians, Akkadians that conquered this area, and it went like that a city would develop, become strong, conquer its surroundings, and then they became very big empires that we hear about in the Bible. Now, on the other side of the world, it's Egypt. And if you look at the colors, very similar. We have the blue of the river, the Nile, the fertile valley, the mountains, the high mountains of Africa that produce the water. And also in Egypt, agriculture starts to flourish, and they become, because of that, a very strong and affluent nation. But having water and good conditions is not enough, because you have to know what to do with this water, because once a year, during spring, it becomes flooded. So what do you do to avoid it so that it won't destroy your villages? And very intricate water systems were built, both in Mesopotamia and in Egypt, more in Mesopotamia, because it's a bigger place and they really succeeded to transform water to all the parts of it. But in order to build those channels, in order to develop the water systems, you need people to work, you need a hierarchy, you need somebody to tell people to do it. You need some kind of ideology to tell them why there are some that do and some that tell them what to do. And the first urban system was developed here around the city of Ur, and also the first written religion, and actually the first urban hierarchy. So in between those two big cultures, those two big empires, there is the land of Canaan. We see it here. The land of Canaan, no special colors, no special resources, and still everybody wants it. Everybody wants it, wants to swallow it, to tear it apart, to have it theirs. Why? What's so special? Nothing here. No water, agriculture, very difficult to work. When there is a drought here, you have to go to Egypt, otherwise you die from starvation. But it's a passageway from south to north. The army, everything, the caravans, they have to pass through here. They cannot make a shortcut because here is a desert, there's no water. So constantly this region is under some kind of war, some kind of struggle. The people who live here, the rulers have to be very diplomatic in order to know with whom to side. Do we side with Egypt, which is near, which is familiar, or do we side with Babylon or Assyria, which are maybe far away, but they're very strong and dangerous. So, and this actually what built the history of this region. And those lands now that I'm going to put on now, you see that this is the shape of a crescent, because this area is also called the Fertile Crescent. Crescent because it looks like part of the moon, and fertile because it follows the rivers. And this is the passage of Abraham from the city of Ur to the land of Canaan. There is the city of Ur, and this happens about 1800 BC, whereas 1,000 years after that, the children of Abraham make the same journey back to Babylon after the destruction of the first temple. Okay, which happened because of that diplomacy, actually, because of the kings that were there in this region. So now our tour will be from the passage of the chosen father to the chosen son, that is from about 3000 BC until the Christian era. Okay? So now we will continue. Any questions so far? Okay.